Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social Podcast with a midweek interview episode. With me here today is one of the upcoming American juniors, first-year junior racing for Fincraft cycling team. That is Jacob Hines. Thank you for being here, Jacob.
Thank you so much for having me, Noah. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast today.
You made your podcast debut last year in a longer episode in which we spoke with multiple 15-16s on the Eurocross Academy trip. You've just made your debut as a junior the last 2 weeks. How's that been?
It's been good. First weekend, last weekend in Rochester, came away with 2 top 10s and some points, but some improvement to do. And then first UCI podium today on the first day of Charm City, taking home third.
To get to know you a bit better, let's go through some more background questions on racing and non-racing related topics. What's your favorite conditions to be racing in? Dry, wet, in between?
I think somewhere in between. I definitely don't like the dry and dusty racing. I don't know many people that do. And too muddy, I'm not a big fan of running a bunch. So I think almost just a little slick, but still enough power is a sweet spot for me.
What's the favorite race you've ever done in your life?
Got to think about that one for a second. I think I really had a good time at Hilversum on the 15-16 Eurocross Academy cross trip in the Netherlands last year.
What did you like about that course?
I like the sand. I think over the course of the trip, I definitely improved a lot in the sand, and just overall, it's a good, fun race in the sand and some good woods battles.
And if you need to choose between starting at the back of the grid, fighting your way to the front, finishing third, or starting on the front row but finishing second, what would you prefer? What's more enjoyable?
I'd prefer starting at the back. I actually really like starting at the back. It kind of takes some pressure off, and it gives you the opportunity to move up and know that the only way you can go is up. And then I feel like working your way from the back to third is a more impressive result than front row to second.
Let's look at some other interests that you have besides cycling. What do you like to do when you're not racing?
I don't do a whole lot. I hang out with my friends a bunch. I go skiing in the off season, some fishing, some rock climbing. Not much.
And what about the American football?
Oh, yes. Here in Baltimore, big Ravens fan. Gonna make it to the Super Bowl this year.
3-time MVP, the Marvelous.
Lamar Jackson, gonna do it.
And what about the food? I remember last year from the 15-16 trip, you were particularly profound on the apple flap. Does any American snack top that?
I don't think so. I think the Dutch pastries really is the number one spot for me. I love a good coffee stop during my ride.
When you're here in the US, what do you like to go to for your coffee stops on the ride?
We got a local cafe where a bunch of group rides start and stop. I like got a Nutella pastry, kind of like a Nutella filled croissant, and then probably just a latte.
What would you say is an acceptable amount of Nutella to put on your sandwich and croissant?
I don't think there's a maximum. I think there's only a minimum, and I think a solid scoop. You really need probably 100 grams for. I think on the last year on the 15-16 block, 4 boys went through like 4 kilos in 2 weeks of Nutella.
That's just diabolical. That's diabolical, but we'll let it slide. We'll let it slide. If you're an endurance athlete, I think all endurance athletes can relate to the amount of food they consume after a long ride, isn't that so?
Yes, very much so.
Let's talk about your racing career then. How did you get into cycling?
Yeah, I started as a 8-year-old racing. I first started with cross in a local club called Baltimore Youth Cycling, which I rode with up until last year. I think this is my seventh or eighth season of racing cross, and then so I started with them. That kind of brought me up, and then I did a year of my first real road season 2 years ago with DC Devo Racing Academy, which was a good introduction. And then this past year, I took it up a notch and raced with EF Education on the road, and gonna continue with them next road season. Hopefully, some more European racing and higher national level racing. And then this is my first year with Fincraft Junior Cycling Team. It's my coach Roger Asfalm's team, so I've had a really good experience so far. I'm excited for the rest of the season.
You race road and cross. What drives you? What's the joy you get out of riding?
No, that's a tricky one. I think I really enjoy just like being able to push yourself, and there's no real maximum. Like it's like a team sport, but it's also like you kind of control. It's almost all in your control. So, and I think also on the road, like the team sport aspect, there's like obviously the satisfaction in winning, but I think also when you rode as hard as you possibly could to help the team, and the team ends up having a great result, is really just as accomplishment as your own result.
Would you say that's a difference between road and cyclocross? Like you say, on the road, if your teammate wins, there's like a degree of your own role in there. In maybe you did the lead out, or maybe you controlled the breakaway, or maybe you were in the breakaway to pressure the other teams. How does that like translate to cyclocross? Because you're also on a team and you have teammates who you spend time with, but it's more individual. But is there also a sense of like satisfaction when your teammate wins that goes further than just the friendship, or how would you place that like in contrast to the road?
Yeah, I think for sure it's not to the full extent. It's not like you're just gonna straight up block for your teammate like a full Ellie Easerby, Michael Van Toren out, especially in junior racing when you're trying to develop your career. But I think definitely like, oh, counterattacking. There's a small little degree of pre-race planning with our team director Roger and teammates of what we're gonna do. But I think it's not quite to the same degree of satisfaction when your teammate wins, but it's still awesome to see them succeed, and obviously your own result too.
So this weekend I saw you doing the pre-ride with your teammates and also your team manager, Roger. How does that go? Because not all teams do that. Is that more common in the US than in Europe, or how should I see that?
I don't think it's super common. You see it at a few of the higher level teams, but I think it's super helpful and super important. Roger has a ton of experience in the American and European cross circuit, and I think another perspective and someone else to show you some lines you might not have seen before is really always a great tool.
As you are a multidisciplinary rider, road and cross, what skill set do you think from the road helps you in cross, and what from the cross helps you on the road?
Yeah, the past 2 years I feel like I've developed a lot more of like a steady power from a lot of TT practice on the road, which I think definitely helps me in like long power, sustain like more diesel engine on the cross bike. But I think also just the being able to handle your bike overall on the cross bike just helps in descending and maneuvering the peloton on the road also.
And then, are there also mental aspects that are applicable?
Yeah, I think cross definitely, because with cross your day starts, maybe 3 hours before you arrive at the venue, 3 hours before your start, to get plenty of pre-ride and warm up and fueling correctly, which translates over to the road, making sure you're organized and have your act together. But then from the road, you also, I think specifically in the past few years, the fueling aspect of the road, you have to carb load the week and day before, and then make sure you're on top of your fueling during, before, and after the race to recover. And I think having that like mindset also helps you prepare better for the cross racing, even though you're probably not eating or drinking much in the race, but the run-in and the hours before.
Obviously, to perform at a high level in any age group, it takes sacrifices, it takes a lot of hard work and dedication. How is that for you to combine that with school? And like you said earlier, you like to hang out with your friends when you're not riding, your non-riding friends. So how is it for you at this young age to combine those factors, racing, school, and social life?
Yeah, it's definitely tricky. I'm gonna tell my friends, no, I can't go hang out with you. I'm away at a race or I'm training. I gotta stay focused. But then it's also, I think, important to have that level of balance to keep, so you don't burn out. I feel like cycling is such a high fitness based sport that you really need, like, it really demands a lot out of athletes. And you've seen so many junior athletes burn out and not, like, they had so much more potential and it never happened. So I think it's important to keep the balance, but it's also really tricky. Like, I'm still in-person school, and there's so many people in my cycling world that are like online, and it's a lot easier for them. But then I fear that if that I were to commit to the online school, I'd just become like a robot and not have much of a life. I feel like I would burn out maybe.
So it's about finding the balance, you say. How do you do that in practical terms?
Yeah, I think I prioritize cycling, but also really prioritize the academics, knowing that realistically in the long run, the academics you can kind of bank on more. Like cycling, it's 1 in a million, whatever. So obviously give it both my full effort and then just try to not overdo it at a young age. I think it's also what you see a lot people doing that can go wrong.
So writing is a big part for you. What motivates you? Like, what's your dream that makes you want to commit so much to it?
Yeah, I feel like in the past year, taking the step up on the road, I kind of like realized, oh, there's actually potential. I feel like I could go somewhere with this, whether it be on the road or cross. I think reaching like racing pro would be a huge dream of mine. I think for one thing, I'd be like, even if I don't, I don't go to sign a world tour contract, I'm not going to race for a world tour team, but maybe even racing for a smaller team for a few years, having fun racing, living the European lifestyle, and then coming back and finding what I want to do later in life.
Do you see yourself more as a road rider or a cross rider in that sense?
I think my answer to this would have been a lot different a few years ago. I feel like before the past 2 years, I was much more of a cross rider, and recently I've taken over a lot more on the road and a lot more. That has changed how I ride as a cross rider. Recently, I think I'm much more of a power-based cross rider, maybe not as technically strong to my competition, and I think the road has done that, which is very helpful, and also knowing that I can always improve on the technical side for cross.
How has the road season then been for you? You made the step to EF, you said.
Yeah, it was great. It was kind of like a soft introduction as a 15-16, just me and one other teammate. So we had a few early season races on in Texas and Arizona, which went great, and then kind of a break, just racing on my own locally, and then nationals in July was. I spent a lot of time focusing on that. I thought I had the potential in the TT, and then I got sick a few days before, had a really bad fever, and I was kind of out. So then I gave it my all, but I had to skip the crit, only race the TT and road race. Did the best for my teammate in the road race that I could, knowing that I wasn't 100%. And then some more local racing. I actually went to mountain bike nationals for fun. It isn't too far from here, so went down, started last row, passed 99 people and finished 16th. And then my road season concluded at Green Mountain Stage Race a few weeks ago, helping the team get second and fourth, I believe, on GC, which was a good accomplishment. I think we fell a little short of what we wanted, but that's one of those examples where it just feels so good to, give everything you can to the team and see it pay off. And then now cross started last weekend and this weekend, and then Trek Cup next weekend.
Earlier, you said you like the teammate aspect of road racing, and I just heard you say at road nationals, because you knew you had been sick and you weren't at your best, you just did the best for your teammate, and I think that says a lot about your character. But isn't that sometimes hard, because you're a 15-16, you're stepping into the junior category now, also on the road, and you're also like trying to look after your own interests, right? You want to have the best shot at signing a development team or that continental contract, and for that you need results, because how many people actually know what happens in the races and maybe know that you did this super strong pull, which meant that there were only 6 riders left on your wheel on the climb, and then you just parked it and your teammate went on to win the race. So how is it to balance like between being a good teammate, being part of that team environment, but at the same time looking after your own future interests?
Yeah, I think it's really tricky. EF On2 is going to have a little bit of a different team dynamic next year with some riders leaving, which I think might give me more of that opportunity as I move into the junior ranks. But also something I've talked about with my coaches, that cross, it's really an individual result, and that is still an important result, and those results speak for yourself, so you can use those to help you as well.
Of course, that's the cross part, and we'll circle back to that in just a little bit. But I'm curious, next year on the road, what are your goals, your dream races? Where would you like to find yourself on the start line?
Yeah, a dream of mine, I really want to race Paris-Roubaix Juniors. I think it's tricky because I don't know where my cross season is going to end this year, but it's hard because the selection races for Paris-Roubaix is so early. It's just maybe a few weeks, a month after the conclusion of the cross season. So it's tricky, but that's really a big dream of mine. And then haven't fully planned out the schedule with the team yet, and then how that looks with the national team as well. But I really hope to race well in Europe and then hopefully go over with the national team.
Is that the type of rider you think you are? A classic specialist for Roubaix, Flanders, or are you still discovering? Because you earlier also mentioned you thought the time trial was a strength of yours.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's hard to, like, as a junior, box yourself into one specific type of rider. You're always growing, developing, but I'm a little big to be a pure climber, and I don't quite have a great sprint, but I think in the past year my sprint has gotten better, and I've started to use my brain to sprint better. But I do think I really got a good time trial engine in me. So TT and breakaways I love a good breakaway, so I think that's where I suit best.
Let's return to cross then. You said you started your season last week in Rochester with a 7th and a 9th place. How was the racing there?
It was good. Hot, fast, and dusty. I had a last lap crash that on day one that took me from 6th to 9th, which is a bummer, but I was looking to move up, and I knew I had the potential and continue to move up on the next day. So lost the sprint for 6th and finished 7th. So I'm happy with that. I think there's still more growth and more potential. I think I'll get better as the season goes on, but I'm excited for what the cross season will bring.
Then today came first day of Charm City Cross. We're recording this on the evening after the first race, so before second race. Baltimore home race. How was it in front of your home crowd, some family and friends, and your entire old Baltimore Youth Cycling Club there cheering for you?
Yeah, it was great. So many different people cheering for me. Me and my teammate finished second and third. Last couple of laps battle. I had a great time. I think Noah and I, my teammate, can do a little better tomorrow. We had a first lap bobble that kind of set us back, but I think we can. I think the win is in our hands tomorrow.
What's something that you want to improve from today's race to tomorrow?
I think I had a good, smooth race. No real mistakes today, and I'd like to continue that tomorrow. But I think my pacing was a little off today. I was chasing down the lead for the first half of the race, and that kind of cost me later. But I think if we stay on the front foot at the beginning of the race tomorrow, we can race. Noah and I can race as a team and see if we can take home the win.
That's Charm City, one of the bigger races in the US, also part of the USCX series, but not one of the selection races. Selection races for junior this year are Rochester, which was last week, then next week Waterloo. With what type of ambitions are you heading over to Wisconsin?
Yeah, some big ambitions. I think Waterloo will pretty much have the top riders in all the US. Almost everybody's going to be there. So, really, to get that selection, you want to be in that top 5 to 6 range. So, that's obviously the dream and the goal. And I think I have the potential for that. It's just, can I put together a smooth, clean, strong race? No stupid mistakes. I think it's possible.
What are your plans for after Waterloo? There's more selection races. Cincy, really rad. Only your 4 best results count. What are you thinking in terms of seasonal approach?
Yeah, so I'll do Waterloo and then a week off, and then I believe the next weekend is Cincy, which I'll go to, and then some downtime, and then Pan Am's, which is just 40 minutes from my house, so that's another big target, automatic selection for Worlds, so a pretty crucial race in the year. And then from there, it's really up in the air how my season goes. After that is the Tabor and Flamanville World Cup trip. If I get selected for that, that'd be amazing. If not, it's not the end of the world, but would be great. And then just racing on my own until Nationals in Fayetteville in early December, which in years past, I haven't been there before, but in years past has been a power course, which kind of suits my rider type on the cross bike. And then hopefully from there, Christmas block racing in Europe, whether that be with the national team or with a different program, would be great. So yeah.
Is there any race you look out to in particular?
I'm not sure. I feel like as an American, we don't have the full sand that the Europeans do, so I think we struggle in that. So like Kolkside, Zonhoven are tricky, but I feel like Zonhoven is so iconic. It's really, really cool race. But then also other races that aren't that like sand based, like Zolder is a pretty cool race on the racetrack, fast. Or yeah, I think no one in particular, but yeah.
What about riders then? Is there any type of like rider, be it US, European, that you try to take inspiration from, either technically, physically, or mentally?
Yeah, I'm not sure. No one rider in particular. I feel like cross riders in general kind of have a different approach to the sport because it's such like at least in America, it's such like a small niche kind of sport. So I feel like knowing that we're all kind of like a small knit community and we gotta support each other to keep the sport going is kind of a good approach to it.
Then you've been racing a bit again on the cross bike here. Last year you were already in Europe. Often we hear American riders on our podcast say, well, I thought I knew a lot about bike racing, and then I went to Europe and it was a humbling experience for the first time. I kind of figured that I needed to improve a whole lot. I mean, just this year we did an interview with Katie Klaus when she announced her retirement, and she said, I first didn't really see the need of racing World Cups because we had the American scene, but then my first race was the World Championships in Valkenburg, and I realized, damn, I gotta get on top of my game if I ever want to beat these girls because the course nature is so different. And of course, you haven't raced World Cups yet, you haven't been in the junior racing. You had, in that sense, a bit of a soft landing last year in the national Dutch level races. But I'm still curious if there's any aspect from that, again, maybe technically, maybe physically, or just in terms of preparedness that you've taken with you towards this cross season and some lessons that you've learned that are helping you now.
Yeah, for sure. That soft landing you said with Eurocross Academy last fall was a great experience to kind of dip our toes in to the European cross scene, and I think it was great. I think what I learned the most was how important it is, like from the technical and physical aspect, but mainly technical, to have a smooth, clean race. Like I found myself making a lot of mistakes that ended up costing me in the end throughout the 4 races. And I think without those mistakes, I could have done much better in my races. So I think going into the European racing scene, knowing that you got to put together your best race because the depth of the field is so much bigger that someone will just take that wheel and go. Whereas in America, there's not as that much argy-bargy.
Then there's just a final question. Are you going to take the whole shot again tomorrow?
Yeah, hope so. I like a quick start, front row, so hometown whole shot.
All right. Thank you so much, Jacob.
Thank you so much for having me, Noah.
That will wrap up this episode of the Cyclocross Social Podcast, one of the first episodes in a slightly new format, the Sitdown, where we sit down with riders to talk about their season and whatnot. Just a bit different than the online interviews we've done in the past, and we hope to bring a couple of more episodes like that throughout the season. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you guys fairly soon for a new episode. Goodbye.